Hello there, I'm Steve from Mac84, and today we're going to be looking at this VEVOR ultrasonic cleaner. This is a huge 30-liter model, so in my review I'm going to be going over what this thing is, what it does, and why I think it's going to be an awesome addition to the basement. So stay tuned. So let's unbox this thing and see what's inside. Well, besides an ultrasonic cleaner. Now, full disclosure, VEVOR has sent me this product to review, which was very kind of them. However, all of the thoughts and opinions are purely my own, and nobody has approved or reviewed anything that you're about to see. So let's slice it open here. All right, everything looks like it's okay inside. Let's get this thing on the table. Oh boy, let's get this box out of the way. All right, so let's start unpacking this thing. It looks like there's some plastic covering. We'll have to remove the lid to get into that, and then I'll review all the different pieces that are inside of this thing. Okay, so we have the VEVOR ultrasonic cleaner here. This is a 30-liter model. It is huge compared to the 15-liter model that I had. My goodness, I think I could fit every logic board or motherboard that I have in this thing. And that's saying something. We have the unit itself, we have the lid that goes on top of it, we have a basket with a few accessories and an instruction booklet, and what I'm actually going to do is take this over to the other side of the basement so we have more room to look at this in detail. Now, to ensure this review isn't over a lot of people's heads, I'm going to stick to the basics of the ultrasonic cleaner. If you want to know exactly the technical details of how the ultrasonic process works, well, my good friend Bruce at Brankus Creations did an excellent video describing just that. I'll put a link in the video description and in the corner as well so you could check that out. But essentially, an ultrasonic cleaner works by using high-frequency sound waves to clean the surface of parts that are placed in the tank. These sound waves are created by specialized components called transducers. These transducers emit specific sound waves through the liquid in the tank. These sound waves create microscopic bubbles via a process known as cavitation. The expanding and collapsing of these millions of bubbles do an excellent job of cleaning hard-to-reach places, and in the process remove a lot of stubborn dirt and grime. Add into the mix some specialized detergent and some heat, and you have an excellent way to clean all sorts of things. Now, I've been using ultrasonic cleaners for a few years, of course, one that's much smaller than this, and I've picked up a thing or two. However, I would want to implore you to look at what you want to clean and do your research about the best way to clean that. You want to understand the best cleaning agent, chemicals, or detergent to use for those items. For example, if you're cleaning electronics, you probably have to use a much different cleaning agent or detergent than if you're cleaning machine parts. It all comes down to what you want to clean and how you want to clean it. In addition, some things like small computer speakers or any speaker of any type should usually not be ultrasonically cleaned. It could damage the speaker, so you want to make sure that you understand the risks of putting something in the ultrasonic cleaner before you get into doing it. Okay, we have everything on the table here, so let's start taking a look at what we have. We have the ultrasonic cleaner, we have the lid, we have some instructions, we have the power cable, we have a hose for draining it, we have the main basket, and we have a tiny little basket that is hooked onto the large basket. And this would be if you are ultrasonically cleaning something small, then let's say you don't want to lose it. So that's a nice inclusion. Let's take a quick tour around the ultrasonic cleaner to look at some of the features that the VEVOR model has. This has a full electronic display. We'll turn this on a little bit, but this will tell you the time that you're setting the ultrasonic cleaner to go and the temperature you want to set it to, which is very nice. So you don't have any dials to fiddle with, it's all electronic. We have two handles on the side here, which makes it easy to lift the tank up. You can see there are vents on either side. Here we have the drain, so if you want to drain the liquid that's in the ultrasonic cleaner, you could do so by doing that. There is that tube that's also included to make draining a bit easier. And on the back we have our standard power connector that our power cable plugs into with a nice on-off rocker. We have a basket that goes in the cleaner. Generally, you're going to want to use the basket when you're cleaning items. It just makes them much easier to retrieve. Unless you're using something that's really bulky in your ultrasonic cleaner, I would recommend using the basket. We also have the lid, and that helps keep everything clean and tidy, especially when you are ultrasonically cleaning it. Now, of course, there is a manual included with the ultrasonic cleaner. It goes over the very basics of how to operate the machine. However, since it's only about 4 pages long, I would suggest you read up more about the subject and do your research about how these machines work and their best use cases before you just dive right into it. Now I want to use this ultrasonic cleaner primarily for cleaning electronic components like logic boards, motherboards, PC cards, and so on and so forth. However, the manual does give us a few ideas of some of the other things you could use an ultrasonic cleaner to clean. It gives examples of necklaces, rings, earrings, glasses, watches, waterproof watches, electronic shaver heads, razors, dentures, combs, toothbrushes, pen heads, printer heads, seals, watch parts, ancient coins, badges, and machine nozzles, forks, knives, spoons, sporks, etc. Now it also lists the specifications of this specific model. This is a TH-100A, and so this has a frequency of 40 kilohertz. This has a power rating of 600 watts. It has a timer that could go up to 30 minutes. The heater is rated up to 800 watts. The specifications also talk about the tank size and the capacity. Now this capacity for this tank is 30 liters. However, I do not think you could safely fill this thing with 30 liters. You'd have some overflowing. But that's usual in ultrasonic cleaners. They will rate it for 10, 15, 20, or 30 liters, but you'd be hard pressed to actually fit that volume of liquid in the tank. This is because the tanks are usually curved or they're tapered on the sides or the edges. Even some of the measurements you see in the manuals or online do not take into account some of the curves here. Now for my personal uses, I'm going to use the ultrasonic cleaner to clean computer boards and computer parts. These are generally wide and long, but not too thick, so I don't have to be too concerned about the dimensions inside a large ultrasonic cleaner like this. However, if I had a 10 liter or a 15 liter ultrasonic cleaner, I may be a little concerned about how this would fit. I might have to get creative of putting it diagonally and so on and so forth. However, that is something you do want to consider when you are buying an ultrasonic cleaner. Try and think about the largest size item you would ever want to ultrasonically clean and determine if the tank size fits what you need to use it for. Sometimes the product manual or the website will list the tank size and the basket size separately. What you probably want to do is go for the basket size, as that would be a pretty good estimate of what you could fit inside of the tank as the basket is fully submerged. A lot of ultrasonic cleaning tanks are rounded, and so if it says this is, say, 12 inches by 17 inches, you have to take into consideration that there may be tapered edges or rounded corners. So if you have something that is going to press against those capacity limits, you may want to consider getting a larger ultrasonic cleaner. You might not need the longer width or the longer depth, but you might just need that one dimension to fit bulkier parts inside of the cleaner. For example, when comparing the tank size of the 15 liter model to the 30 liter model, the width and the height remain largely the same. The only big difference is with the length of the tank. I'm going to quickly compare the manual's dimensions of the ultrasonic cleaner with my measuring tape here. So this says that the width here is 500 millimeters, or that's about 19.69 inches. If I use my tape measurer here, we get about a bit over that, 19 inches and 7/8, but there is a bit of give to this metal here. Now if I measure the width, that's supposed to be about 300 millimeters, or about 11.81 inches. And if I measure that here, I get just about 11 inches and a bit over 7/8. And if I measure the depth here, which is supposed to be about 200 millimeters, that's supposed to be 7.87 inches deep. And if I measure that here, taking into account the curve a little bit, and going right up to the tippy top, that should be actually 8 inches and 1/8. But of course, you're not going to be filling this to the tippy top of the unit either way. But we have something perfect that came with the ultrasonic cleaner that's going to fit in it, and that's the basket. So let's put the basket in and measure. So if I put the basket in, there's about half an inch or so of wiggle room for the left and the right, and the same for the width. And there's about 2 or 3 inches from the top of the basket to the top of the ultrasonic cleaner, excluding the handles. So let's measure the basket real quick, and I'll put conversions on the video here because I'm not smart enough to do that in real time. The manual or VEVOR's website doesn't mention the basket size, but it's about 18.65 inches long, 10.65 inches wide, and 4.75 inches high, not including the handles. I'd like to note that the VEVOR website is pretty accurate with their product and tank dimensions, whereas the included printed manual seems to be rounded off. I almost forgot the part of every YouTube review you have to take off this protective plastic very slowly. Well, that was a very 40 one. Whether you're using the basket or not, you're going to want to place the lid on top of the cleaner while it's working to make sure that a lot of those chemicals and fumes sort of stay in here. But of course, that being said, you want to use this in a fairly well ventilated area, especially if you're using harsh chemicals or other detergents. Now, before we do fill this thing up with water and give it a go, I want to see what's inside of this thing. Now, of course, the manual states and VEVOR states that you should not open this, but I'm going to do it just for educational purposes. You should probably not do this. Okay, so I'm probably not going to be able to pull this thing fully up because everything's connected, but we will get a peek inside of here. We could see the power supplies and drivers for all of those transducers, and we could see the fan. Everything looks very clean and tidy. Let me see if I can get a shot in here with my phone. Now, if you look here, we do have 10 transducers, which power the ultrasonic cleaner, so that gives us a lot of cleaning power. And then we have the fan here that helps cool all the power supplies and the electronics underneath that drive the ultrasonic cleaner. I'll probably need about 7 or 8 of these gallons to fill this 30-liter tank close to the top, but we'll get to that in a little bit. In my case, I'm going to be using a detergent that's specifically made for electronics, like this Branson EC. This is a pretty harsh chemical, so you want to follow all of the safety precautions on the back. That goes for any chemicals you are using. You want to make sure you're using them properly, and I'm probably going to be using some gloves just to be on the safe side. Now, we're going to be filling up this ultrasonic cleaner with water in a minute, but it goes hopefully without saying that you should never ever run these without the tank filled to the appropriate level. You're going to burn out the transducers and put stress on the power supplies and all that stuff, so you don't want to do that. What's great about this VEVOR ultrasonic cleaner is that it has a built-in heater. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill this with water, and I'm going to set the heater to 50 degrees Celsius or about 122 degrees Fahrenheit to see how long it takes to get to that level. Then I'm going to let that water cool down to room temperature again, and I'm going to try that again with an external heater just to see if that helps speed up the process. During that test, we'll also be able to see how much liquid we could fit in the ultrasonic cleaner and see how many gallons we have to pour in until it comes up to this ridge here. Now, for my purposes, this VEVOR ultrasonic cleaner is going to be used primarily for cleaning electronic devices like this computer logic board or motherboard. Electronic devices can be very, very sensitive. Therefore, I'm going to be using distilled water instead of tap water. With tap water, there may be trace amounts of chemicals or harsh minerals or anything like that, so distilled water is usually the way to go, and it's pretty cheap. It's about $1 per gallon. So, let's get started. Okay, here goes gallon 1. All right, here goes gallon 2. Here goes gallon 3. This is gallon 4. I'm gonna put in gallon 5 now. So this is gallon 6. Okay, so it's a bit hard to see with the lighting and everything, but we are right up to the top here. So we have about, I'd say an inch or so from the top, which I think is fine, because remember, we're gonna be submerging things in here. And because we're putting a volume in here, that water is going to rise up a little bit. So with 6 gallons of water, or almost 23 liters, we filled the tank to just about this line. The tank could fit a bit more liquid in it, but probably not 30 liters. Now we're going to plug everything in. Of course, you want to use the grounded plug, and you don't want to circumvent that grounded plug. And you want to be very careful when dealing with power near water. All right, so I'm going to turn on the ultrasonic cleaner and take a look at that nice bright display. So we have the temperature set on the left and the time for the cleaning on the right. We're going to ignore the cleaning portion for now because I just want to see how long it takes to get up to temperature. I'm going to set that temperature down to 50. It's currently about 17 C, so we're going to set that to 50 Celsius now. And I'm going to turn on this heater in a second, and we're going to see how long it takes to heat up the entire pool of water. I am going to put the lid on just to conserve the heat that actually builds up inside of there, and we'll see how long it takes. Okay, so it took just over 2.5 hours to reach 50 Celsius in this tank using the built-in heater. Now 50 is probably a bit higher than I normally would heat it to, maybe around 40 or 45, but I thought it was a nice round number. So it took about 2.5 hours for that. Now what I want to do is try to heat up the water with one of these heaters. This is an immersion water heater or a bathtub heater. I'm going to plug this in and try and heat the same amount of water and see how long it takes us to get to 50 degrees Celsius. I am going to leave the ultrasonic cleaner on. It's not going to be heating or ultrasonicing anything, but the unit is going to be turned on. And that way we can get an understanding of the measurement of the temperature. And I also have this little aquarium temperature sensor here as well. So this is going up into the tank, and I'm just curious to see how accurate the temperature sensor is in this unit versus an external one. It looks like we're off by about 2 degrees Celsius, but I am curious to see if that changes as the tank heats up. Okay, I have the external heater plugged in and sitting in the top of the tank. This piece of wood is just to make sure that the wire doesn't go into the tank here. And we're going to see how long it takes to get the temperature up to 50 degrees Celsius. Okay, so it's been just about under an hour and we've surpassed the 50 Celsius temperature mark. You can see the aquarium temperature sensor that I have here is actually saying we're closer to 56 degrees Celsius than the 36 degrees Celsius that the ultrasonic cleaner says. So if you're going to be heating the ultrasonic cleaner up pretty often, I would suggest getting an external heater and an external temperature sensor so you have a better idea of when the water reaches your desired temperature. Okay, so now that the ultrasonic cleaner has been warmed up, well, it's time to clean something in it. Now again, you should always follow the instructions for your detergent or your chemicals. You want to make sure that you're safe and you're doing things properly. What we're going to be doing is cleaning a Macintosh SE logic board. And let me show you why I think this is a good candidate for cleaning. All right. So this is a pretty sad looking Macintosh SE logic board, and unfortunately the battery has exploded. So we're going to remove that battery and we're going to put this thing in the ultrasonic cleaner to see if we can make it look a little bit better. So first we're going to diffuse this Maxell battery bomb here. Oh yeah, look at that. That is certainly past its prime. Ugh. Now I'm going to be using the basket with the ultrasonic cleaner because this logic board will fit in perfectly with that basket in place. It'll make it a little bit easier to remove this as well. I've also removed all the memory modules from this motherboard here, and we're gonna put it in, and hopefully we'll see a much cleaner result when the ultrasonic cleaner has finished cleaning it. And I'm going to put the lid on to help retain the heat and everything. Okay, so I'm going to run the ultrasonic cleaner for about 20 minutes with the logic board inside of there. When 20 minutes is up, I'm going to flip it over and we'll run it again on the opposite side. Remember, the heater is off, although we did preheat this to about 50 degrees Celsius. It was a bit over that, so I'm not really going to be paying attention to much over here. We are just running the ultrasonic cleaner, not the heater at this point in time. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. All right, time to flip things over. Now just be careful when you lift the lid of the ultrasonic cleaner. There's likely going to be a lot of water and moisture on the bottom of the lid. So you don't want to just open it up like this and water's going to go everywhere, especially if this thing is on and plugged in. So I'm going to open the lid carefully. I'm just going to let it drip there. Now, of course, the water is hot, so I'm actually going to use a screwdriver and just get the edge of the basket there and just lift the basket out. Of course, I have these gloves on. And wow, that board is already looking very clean. So I'm going to flip this over and we'll run it on the same setting for the back for a little bit. And I'm going to put the cover right back on. Now, since this is already looking very clean, I'm only going to run it again for 10 minutes. But usually if I had a very dirty board or something that had a lot of corrosion, I'm going to run it for a longer period of time. But for this demonstration, I think 10 minutes will be fine. While the unit was running, it was consuming about 436 watts or about 119 volts and 3.7 amps. The heater was off in this test, but if that was on, I could assure you this would be a bit higher. All right, so it's done. Let's open this up and see how things look. That's looking very, very clean. My goodness, that did a phenomenal job. Let's get a better look at this. Oh wow, just look how clean that is. It really cleared away a lot of the rust that was on here. There's only a tiny bit left visible by some of these little resistors and such. I mean, I could see a little bit by the battery terminal to be fair, but that is where the battery exploded, so that's to be expected. So as you can see, the VEVOR Ultrasonic Cleaner did an excellent job on that Macintosh SE logic board. However, I am curious how it will fare with a bit more of a damaged and dirty logic board. This board is from a Macintosh LC series, and, well, it's seen better days. This thing has had a battery explode on it, and unfortunately it is not salvageable. Most of the pins on the processor are rusted and have fallen off. However, I am curious to see how well a lot of the corrosion and gunk from this board will be cleaned using an ultrasonic cleaner. So this will be our next test subject. Alright, so the ultrasonic cleaner is already up to temperature, so we're going to put this in, run it through around on this side, then flip it over and, well, see how it looks. So let's put that in. Okay, time to flip it over. It's already looking much better. See? Give you a close-up later. Okay, so let's run it again for 20 minutes. Again, I'm not using a heater since the water is already up to temperature, so only the ultrasonic cleaner will be on. All right, it's done. Let's take a look. Oh, wow. I mean, there are obvious flaws because the board is beyond gone, but that looks pretty darn clean. You could see a lot of the corrosion on this SCSI port is gone, and you could see a ton of that rust is gone too. Not all of it, but a good majority of it is. And although this processor isn't going to work anytime soon, you could see it's a lot cleaner in that area. We could actually see a lot of the pins that were covered with rust before. In this corner especially, we had a lot of corrosion and gunk, and you can see a lot of that is clear now. I think the VEVOR Ultrasonic Cleaner did an excellent job on these logic boards. This one looks practically new, and although we have this 4 parts Macintosh LC board over here that has seen better days, a lot of these chips are looking great, and I'm sure we could salvage some of them if we needed to for future projects. Just not that CPU. I'm very impressed by this VEVOR Ultrasonic Cleaner. It was surprisingly quiet. It wasn't as loud as my smaller ultrasonic cleaner, and it did a beautiful job in not a lot of time. My only suggestions would be to also purchase an external thermometer and a heater. These are inexpensive, and they would let you get a more accurate reading on the temperature inside of the tank and save a lot of time heating it up. I'm very curious to see how this will tackle some larger boards that I'll throw at it later on. As a vintage computer enthusiast, I think an ultrasonic cleaner is just another great tool to have at your disposal. Whether you're doing microscopic repairs or just trying to clean in between hard to reach places, a VEVOR ultrasonic cleaner would be an excellent addition to your tool set. So if you're in the market for an ultrasonic cleaner, I can highly recommend these VEVOR line of ultrasonic cleaners. Check out the link in the video description for a special discount code to get yours at a great price. Thank you again to VEVOR for sending me this great ultrasonic cleaner. If you have something that you'd like to have ultrasonically cleaned, let me know what it is in the comment section. Maybe we'll try it in here in a future video. But that's about it for now. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you right here next time on Mac 84.